You're standing in the middle of Rome in 150 AD, a city that was the most magnificent the world had ever known. Close to 1 million inhabitants coexist in an area where countless scents mix together. In that same warm afternoon air, a slave's sweat and a senator's gentle voice blend. Sunlight pounds relentlessly against the stone pavement. These tight, bustling streets overflow with merchants' livestock and kids darting around grown-ups' legs. You shove your way through the crowd and unexpectedly catch sight of a long, calm, orderly line. Men of all ages and social classes stood patiently before an enormous stone entrance. Within, steam rises upward, and murmurs of conversation plus flowing water drift out through the gaps. This isn't a temple or a courthouse. Could it be a thermopolium? No, it's something far more influential: the public baths. And this discovery completely overturns your assumptions about Roman life. That's why, today, we need to confront a major question. How could a society lacking mass-produced soap, showers, modern pipes, and even basic sanitation gear devise the most advanced communal bathing system of antiquity? And once the system collapsed, why did it take over a millennium for people to develop anything comparable? The explanation, as you're about to see, is far more astonishing than you'd ever expect. Before anything else, we have to overturn a notion that's been implanted in us since our school days. This belief claimed the past was naturally filthy, that ancient folks wallowed in dirt, reeked, and were perfectly okay with it. That perspective isn't just wrong, it's precisely the reverse of how Romans actually lived. When it came to cleanliness, Rome was, in numerous ways, fixated on it. Of course, their obsession wasn't like yours today. Instead, it aligned with their world and operated with terrifying efficiency. Look at it this way. At home, you take a solo shower in your private bathroom in under 10 minutes. For the Romans, bathing was a social gathering, a spot for meeting, and even a place where transactions were finalized. Chatter flowed, philosophers debated, and physicians diagnosed ailments. Bathing went far beyond simple cleanliness. Perhaps it was civilization in itself. And to comprehend its inner workings, you must first understand what a genuine Roman bath was like. Erase everything you picture when you think of a public restroom. Dismiss cold ceramic tiles, harsh artificial lighting, and the odor of cleaning chemicals. Roman baths were grand landmarks, palaces devoted to everyday existence. Built in Rome in the early 3rd century AD, the baths of Caracalla could hold more than 1,500 individuals at once. They offered cold water pools, steam baths, warm chambers, and hot water rooms. Furthermore, they housed inner gardens, reading halls, gymnasiums, food vendors, and even concert areas. What was that? Give your answer, Miss Cooper. Every bit of this was contained within one building. Walking through the main gate, your senses are immediately overwhelmed by what you see. Above you, the ceiling reaches dozens of meters high, decorated with vivid mosaics narrating stories of gods and legends. Beneath your feet, polished marble stretches across the floor. You're surrounded by massive pillars resembling old tree trunks, holding up arches that appear to reach for the heavens. The atmosphere is heavy with moisture and a fragrant scent, blending botanical oils and herbs that burn in bronze vessels. Far from being an exclusive retreat for the wealthy, it was open to nearly all. In Rome, the cost to enter the public baths was a quadrans, which was the tiniest coin in circulation. That amount was so minuscule that historians often regard it as virtually worthless. During numerous eras, emperors personally covered the cost to eliminate entry fees, using this to gain public favor. Enslaved people came in alongside their owners. Military personnel got a reduced price. Kids frequently got in for free. In one of his letters, Seneca, a philosopher and author from 1st century Rome, noted something incredibly valuable to us now. He wrote about the sounds coming up from the baths located below the apartment where he attempted to concentrate on his studies. You could hear the grunts of men working out. The massage therapist's hands landing on clients' backs made loud slapping sounds. Amid the crowd, vendors selling sausages and cakes were yelling to attract attention. This was a chaotic scene that was orderly, lively, and full of energy. And that's exactly when things start to become intriguing, since the baths involved far more than just cleansing yourself. They revolved around a far more complex and thoughtful ritual than what might first appear. Once you grasp this ritual, your entire concept of what it means to be clean will shift dramatically. You'll start to challenge the true definition of cleanliness. It will also show you that the Romans stumbled upon a concept that science didn't verify until centuries after Rome collapsed. However, reaching that point requires you to first join an everyday resident during a typical afternoon trip to the baths. You must enter alongside him, experience his emotions, and observe the sights through his eyes. It's only at that moment that the full magnitude of this find becomes truly clear. We're following Marcus, a middle-aged leatherworker employed in Ula, the commercial hub of Rome. It's roughly 2 hours after midday. The morning shift is done, the sun remains high in the sky, and Marcus is folding up his work apron. He sets it down on the wooden bench, then rises with the fatigue of someone who has spent long hours hunched over his workbench. His destination isn't home, it's the bathhouse, just like every other day. Along the route, he stops at a public fountain and drinks straight from the carved stone. That water is fresh and chilled, delivered by an aqueduct stretching many miles from the mountains. At the empire's peak, Rome ran 11 aqueducts at once, delivering more than 1 million cubic meters of water into the city daily. Pause for a moment and grasp the scale of that figure. 1 million cubic meters every day. For an urban center lacking electric pumps, steel pipes, or any technology you'd consider modern, this water supplied the baths. A vast amount of water was required for the baths. Since Romans didn't rely on soap for cleaning, they used something entirely different. Marcus goes in via the bathhouse's side door, the entrance reserved for men. He stores his garments in a numbered stone alcove, watched over by a slave tasked with keeping his possessions safe. He grabs the small implement he always brings along, a curved metal or bone hook attached to a long handle. Known as a strigil in Latin, this tool is the crucial element since the Roman bath starts with perspiration, not water. Marcus heads first to the workout area. This is the palaestra, an open-air courtyard where men lift stone weights, run, wrestle, and toss an air-filled ball. The objective goes beyond mere physical fitness. Its purpose is to induce perspiration, open up the pores, and draw to the skin's surface all the waste the body has to get rid of. Following 20 to 30 minutes, Marcus is drenched in sweat. His skin glistens, his muscles feel heated, and the true purification rite then commences. He steps into the tepidarium, the moderately heated chamber, and takes a seat upon a stone bench. Olive oil is spread over his skin by a slave, or occasionally a companion. This isn't soap, rather, it's plain olive oil covering his entire body, after which the strigil is used with steady, sweeping motions. The curved blade glides across the skin, stripping away the oil together with the grime, perspiration, dead skin, and dust gathered over the course of work. The residue that slips from the skin is cloudy, dark, and heavy with all the impurities the body collects. It falls to the floor, flows away via the stone drainage system, and vanishes. At this point, modern science makes its entrance in a manner the Romans would never have been able to articulate. Yet they carried it out with everyday exactness. Contemporary studies in dermatology have confirmed that olive oil has inherent microbes-fighting qualities. The oleic acid found in olive oil produces a hostile setting for certain bacteria responsible for body odor and skin infections. Meanwhile, the act of scraping with a strigil delivers a thorough exfoliation that standard soap simply cannot match in terms of efficacy. The Romans had no comprehension of the underlying mechanism, yet it clearly functioned. Their awareness was based on empirical evidence passed down across many generations. Leaving the tepidarium behind, Marcus proceeds into the caldarium, the intensely hot chamber. Thick steam fills the space, and the air presses down like a moist, heavy covering on the shoulders. In that place, with pores fully dilated, the body lets go of whatever is left. The last bit of sweat, the profound purification that no quantity of cold water could ever accomplish. He remains there for a short while, either sitting quietly or chatting with the person beside him. This individual could be a prosperous trader or a former slave who has recently gained his freedom. These bathhouses possessed a remarkable ability to erase social distinctions, if only temporarily for a couple of hours. Next is the frigidarium, a pool of cold water, and that's where the system's final punch becomes clear. Plunging into icy water seals the pores, narrows the blood vessels, and firms up the skin after its full cleansing cycle. It's basically the same as what doctors now call contrast thermotherapy, which elite athletes use today to recover muscles and boost vascular health. For the Romans, this was a daily ritual done for enjoyment and social interaction. Yet even as the ritual's sophistication impresses you, something about Roman baths rarely crosses most people's minds. There's a factor, in other words, that disrupts the nice story we've just told. And this deserves mention because truly grasping history demands honest acknowledgement. The baths were far from flawless. The water in the frigidarium where Marcus soaked had already been shared by dozens of bathers before him. Not every pool got a steady flow of fresh water. Even with the trusty strigil, the floors of those chambers built up grime. The public latrines connected to the baths got their cleaning from a slave wielding a stick-mounted sponge that everyone shared. Skin ailments ran wild, and fungal infections were a frequent complaint. Galen, a Roman doctor from the 2nd century AD, is regarded as a founding figure in Western medicine. He documented many instances of skin issues linked to bath use. Moreover, the bath's splendor hid another issue all too well: inequality. It was present even in what appeared to be an equal opportunity setting. Those enslaved workers in the baths, firing the furnaces, hauling water, shaving clients' backs, unclogging drains, never got to be bathers themselves. They were the unseen gears that kept the whole operation moving. The society that pioneered the ancient world's most sophisticated sanitation rested on the shoulders of people who could never relax on the marble seats of the tepidarium. This doesn't take away from how clever the system was, yet it keeps us from painting an overly rosy picture of the past that wouldn't be truthful. My lord. Yep. After chatting with 3 neighbors, Marcus heads out of the baths with clean skin and relaxed muscles. He also informally agreed to deliver a load of belts to a stable in the adjoining neighborhood. My lord. He's doing well, he feels great, and will return tomorrow. The Romans grasped this earlier than anyone. Cleanliness isn't something you do alone. It's a communal habit, part of civic systems, a matter of public policy, and it's what distinguishes a true city from a camp. And once that insight vanished with the empire, Europe's subsequent fate is a tale that will stun you. Picture a power outage that happens all at once, no gradual dimming. Historians more or less use that image to describe how Rome's sanitation infrastructure crumbled after the empire fell in the 5th century CE. Of course, not every bath shut down simultaneously. Their slow decay was unavoidable. When upkeep of the aqueduct stopped, the furnaces went quiet because no fuel was available. The trained slaves were scattered, and in the end, the public treasury ran dry. Everything was depleted. One after another, the lights flickered out. In terms of public sanitation, what followed ranks among the most devastating eras in human history. For centuries in medieval Europe, the notion of regular public bathing completely vanished. It wasn't that people were more indolent or less smart than the Romans. Rather, the facilities that made bathing possible had been wrecked, and nobody possessed the funds, coordination, or political system to reconstruct them. Still operational, the ancient Roman aqueducts were either repurposed for irrigation or left to fall into disuse. Urban centers that previously enjoyed running water now relied on wells and rivers. Hygiene once more turned into a costly private luxury hard to attain and requiring assets beyond the reach of the majority. The starkest contrast in this narrative is a society of nearly 1 million individuals who bathed together every day. That gave way to a culture in which a weekly bath was viewed as quite frequent. For the lowest classes, bathing once a month was typical. The fall of the empire created a 1,000-year gap. Roman infrastructure included lead plumbing and ovens made of stone. At this point, Roman history stops being just a curiosity of the past and starts acting as a mirror. The reason is that Rome grasped a concept that would take centuries to rediscover, one that sounds self-evident when spoken plainly. Yet, it is seldom put into genuine practice. Sanitation is a public benefit, not a private matter. Investing in universal cleanliness isn't an act of generosity for a society. It's a smart, self-protective strategy. Contemporary public health studies validate this in terms the Romans couldn't have expressed, yet they lived out this truth firsthand. Populations with basic sanitation see far fewer infectious illnesses, reduced infant deaths, longer lifespans, and greater economic productivity. This isn't accidental, it's cause and effect, and the Romans figured it out 2 millennia ahead of epidemiologists. Consider the baths of Diocletian, opened in Rome in 305 AD. These were the largest baths ever constructed, able to hold as many as 3,500 people at once. In one structure, 3,500 individuals washed, mingled, and attended to their bodies, just like all those surrounding them. Such a massive communal investment in bodily care wouldn't be matched in the Western world until the 1800s. England's Victorian sanitation reforms brought back public water delivery and sewage treatment, driven not by social delight but by cholera outbreaks in industrial towns. That lesson came back, but only after an enormous cost. And one tiny, seemingly trivial detail reveals Rome's approach to hygiene better than any data could. During digs at Pompeii, the town entombed by Vesuvius in 79 AD, archaeologists came upon writings etched into walls right outside the public restrooms. Those weren't rules or warnings, they were jokes, wordplay, and comic verses. Those who used the facilities left permanent proof in stone that this was a time for laughter, shared amusement, and everyday connection. For them, taking care of your body was neither shameful nor a solo activity. It belonged to community life, no matter how silly or pointless that community life could be. And that reveals something deep about how a society views its own physical self. It also reveals something just as deep about what we sacrifice once we no longer see hygiene as something we do together. We begin to treat it purely as a private duty, hidden behind locked doors, a quiet, isolated act, completely cut off from the world around us. They had no industrial soaps, no deodorants, no instant hot water at home. They had none of the everyday comforts you use without a second thought, even in the final minutes before rushing out to work. Yet they owned something that might actually be scarcer than any tech. They had a system. They truly believed that taking care of one person's body meant taking care of the whole city's body as well. And they had the engineering, the political will, and the public commitment to make that belief real. That belief was poured into stone, into running water, into steam, into polished marble, and into orderly lines outside grand doorways on a scorching summer day. When this imaginary afternoon wraps up, you walk out of the baths alongside Marco. The sun is just starting its descent. The streets are still radiating the warmth they soaked up during the day. Your skin feels fresh, and every muscle in your body feels relaxed. The casual agreement you made is something you keep with you. That deal was sealed on a tepidarium bench beside a merchant you had only just encountered. Your surroundings are a loud, aromatic, flawed, and captivating city. Do you now see the reason Rome endured for so many years? Its armies and legal systems were not the only reasons. There was also this: small daily rituals performed over and over by countless citizens, generation after generation. Ultimately, water and time are as essential to civilization as anything else. If this video gave you a fresh perspective on something familiar, share your thoughts in the comments. Which moment caught you off guard the most? Was it the strigil, the aqueducts, or that a millennium passed before we rediscovered what Romans knew? Share it with us. If you've stayed with us this long, you already know the drill. Give this video a thumbs up, pass it along to a history enthusiast, and hit subscribe so you won't miss the upcoming episode. Next week, we'll dive into the Roman approach to everyday healthcare. We'll also uncover the medical insights Roman physicians had about anatomy wisdom Europe lost for hundreds of years. This is something you'll definitely want to see. You're the one.